A very good morning to you. My name is David Batsoffen, and this is Off the Shelf. And today I'm joined by what is probably, or who is the man most probably the number one cartoonist in South Africa currently, and that's Zapiro. This is his brand new album. It's number 29, can you believe? With a bullet, no doubt. Have I got GNUs for you? Jonathan, good morning. Welcome to you.
Hi, morning, David.
When I was growing up, annuals had a different meaning because we used to get the Beano and Boy's Own and those type of things. But it seems now, in South Africa anyway, that annuals have become cartoon books, a look back, a retrospective on the year from a variety of different cartoonists. Yourself sort of being in the forefront of these, with 29 of them already. So next year is going to be a big one. I should imagine the 30th will be a look back at Zapiro's 29 previous ones and what happened. So,
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do. I'll have to cross that bridge when I get there. But when I'm thinking about an annual that's just come out, my head is so involved in it.
right.
I can't think about next year. But next year comes blooming quickly, I can tell you.
I should imagine so. When this year, with the Government of National Unity, when they first floated that name, did you go, yes, thank you. There is a cartoonist god, and I now have the basis for an entire year's worth of work.
A year's worth of work? No way. In terms of yes, I immediately, of course, remembered my character that I developed for 1994. That was essentially I just
Yeah,
lifted this new from the new of 1994, which was Madiba's new, and I already realized that this one was it had a resemblance to the new. Some people don't get the new thing, and the new is another name for wildebeest,
correct.
and so Government of National Unity. And when I say the book title, I say, "Have I got news for you?" It's a title that just sort of jumped into my
Yeah.
head, and I suddenly realized later that the reason that I uh, say it that way instead of saying I've got news for you is that there was that British satirical program called Have I Got News for You,
Correct.
which was a legendary program. But yeah, the actual character, the new, um, I mean, I knew already that this was, kind of a coalition dressed up to be a new. It's not quite a proper government of national unity like
But
the one in 94. But
but you know,
it doesn't matter to me.
no, but if you look at a wildebeest, it's an animal designed by a committee. So let me just take you through this, if I may, very quickly. It has the face of a horse, the horns of a buffalo, the slope of a hyena, the mane and tail of a horse, and the brain of a guinea fowl. But we'll leave it at that.
Nice. I like that.
But this looks like a very tired GNU. So let me ask you, what's news with you? Let's have a look. I've put some cartoons together, going through the book, and I have to say it has crossed my desk. He says, fiddling through everything that's here. There it is, just to prove to people that I have a copy and I have looked at it. There were certain cartoons that every time I flipped through the book came up on the same ones. And I mean, VBS seems to have cracked the news this year, whether they like it or not. Specifically, our
Yeah.
Minister of Justice.
Yeah, I mean that's what elephant in this little room. This room happens to be Tembi Similani's coffee shop, and she's pretending that there isn't a giant elephant whose backside is kind of every all that you can see from here.
Yeah.
Unbelievable for a person in the position of Minister of Justice. That's Minister of
Yeah.
Justice. Um, yeah, bought with 500,000 Rand VBS kickback. Actually, it was a kickback from a company that was hugely in with VBS, but which she would have known being, the head of the Polokwane municipality,
Right.
that was her previous position. So it was a clear kickback. And she's pretending that everything's fine. And Cyril is pretending that he can once again. I mean, that's where I get irritated with him. He makes another little sort of new start, new dawn with this new, but he still goes about things in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Somebody in a position as high as Minister of Justice is clearly tainted. That person has to go immediately. It's not a matter of saying, well, the processes are happening, the whatever. You cannot have somebody like the Minister of Justice or Minister of Police or Minister, that sort of thing. You
Mm.
cannot have somebody with this sort of thing hanging over their heads. And also, it's not just sort of vague rumors that this has been, it's the journalists and the journalists where I work, Daily Maverick and Scorpio, these are the people who've actually nailed her and
Yeah.
nailed other people involved in BBS.
It takes me back to when Derek Watts, bless him, was on Carte Blanche, and he'd gone back to do a follow-up story with somebody who'd been involved with license selling. And he said to the woman behind the counter, "Why do you do it?" And she said, "But it wasn't me." And he showed her film footage of her doing it. And she goes, "That's not me." And it's this same sort of mentality. How can it not be you? What do you think? Went out and looked for a body double. And it's the same sort of mentality currently with our government ministers who believe that they're untouchable and pay back the money doesn't work because they're never going to pay it back. Never.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the kind of that sort of shifting these kind of shifting stories
Mm.
are like brought to mind by what's happening now with Floyd Shivambu just this morning. I mean, I
Yeah.
heard him going on the radio, a statement from Floyd saying that we were kind of misled about Jacob Zuma's corruption. He was never connected with the state capture and all that. It's unbelievable that people can say these things. And because now that he's now that he's been given the position of Secretary General, he thinks he can just say something that
Yeah.
and people will believe him. Some will.
With,
That's the problem.
of course they will. But with that in mind, Jonathan, when you sit down to do a cartoon, do you, do you sort of have in the back of your mind, I better run this by my lawyers just in case, or do you just go right and be damned type of thing? I'll sort it out afterwards.
I would say 9 out of 10 cartoons, I wouldn't really need to do that.
Mm.
Or actually, I'm not sure of the percentage, but it's only a very small percentage where one would have to. In terms of controversy, it might be a higher proportion than that.
Mm.
But in terms of actually checking things with lawyers, it's actually probably a smaller proportion than
You're
that.
right.
So, it's not, it's, generally speaking, I mean, I just sort of deliver the cartoons. But
Yeah.
when I know that something is going to be either very controversial or or it's going to be legally problematic or both,
Mm.
then of course I want the editor has to have the final say,
Yeah.
and the editor may have to get a legal opinion as well. And that has happened it's
Is
happened many times.
is there a file in your office somewhere in a cabinet that goes rejected cartoons and that you thinking to yourself, on my deathbed, when I know that I'm absolutely terminal and there is no hope of me getting better, I'm going to publish all of these. It's in my will that that folder will be published the day I die, and then let the chips fall where they may.
There isn't such a file. And the reason
Ah.
there isn't such a file is that the circumstances around why a cartoon doesn't get published
Mhm.
vary enormously. I've often had very good editors, very good relationships with my editors, and I've had fantastic editors over the years, many of them, because I've been
Mhm.
at so many publications. Um, so sometimes when an editor I really admire and I have a discussion about a cartoon and we end up not using it, there might be a really good reason, and
Yeah.
maybe I start to agree with the editor, that the furore that might be created around it
It's not worth it.
and the sort of sensationalism um, could have made it kind of have a notoriety value and all
Yeah.
that, but actually it might not work.
Yeah. I
And
hear what you're
so that's
saying.
the reason that it wasn't there. If it's a cartoon that I really wanted to publish and an editor said to me, no, I'm not prepared to do that. And I felt like it was just straight censorship. And there have been a few of those.
Mhm.
They're kind of in a different bracket. So I don't put them all together and I don't
Okay.
collate them all.
All
But
right.
I have records of all of them somewhere.
Good.
Yeah.
Now this one gets to me because bless ESCOM for what is it? Since 2008, they haven't been able to get it right. And now all of a sudden, just out
Mm.
of the blue, the man who turns the damn switch on and off figured out which switch to turn off in order to allow it not to have to be turned off. And then they hit us with a price increase. It's like,
Yeah.
come to my shop, you can
Yeah.
see the goods, but you can't buy them. In fact, I don't want you to even use my product at home. I just want to keep it in the shop and nobody gets to use it. But there's no load shedding. There are power outages, which is a whole different kettle of fish. But and if you've gone the solar route in order to take pressure off the grid, oh, trust me, we're going to slam you with increases whether you like it or not.
Yeah, there's for the way that a cartoon works is you kind of lull you into thinking it's going one way and then it boom it goes the
Bang.
other way. I mean, so this is the idea of I mean I hadn't done an ESCOM cartoon for quite a long time because unlike the previous period, a long period where
Yeah.
I kept on doing ESCOM cartoons because people were so outraged. Now all of a sudden there's I had played around with this Minister of Electricity. I've done him often with the sort of Harry Potter wizard's hat and a
Yeah.
wand, like trying to magic electricity out of nothing. Well, then he started to sort of to magic some electricity. And so 5 months without load shedding, and boom, just when you thought it was safe to turn the lights
Yeah.
back on. The old Jaws metaphor, it's a nice one. It's been used many times, but
Yeah.
you can always do a surprise now, usually you do a Jaws metaphor in a water situation, but
Yeah.
just to have this thing come out of nowhere, this ridiculous price hike, it
Yeah.
felt like it was appropriate.
This one, I don't know how many times I went past this and stopped every single time. It's not that it's Floyd and Juju. It's the fact that you've turned Smeg into Smug, which I think is absolutely brilliant, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Really and truly.
The first thing you'd see as you go through it, the very first time you see it, you don't even see that yet. You just see toast.
Yes.
That's it. Now you just see toast. Floyd and Juju are toast around what? The VBS.
Yeah.
And then you might see smug and laugh. And the smug thing, I love doing that kind of little thing. And then you see like, okay, this VBS story. Oh yeah, they're making this strange distinction along with the Dali and Pofu, who at that time was working for both of them. But of course, like Dali has sort of left Juju in terms of his legal. Well, I don't
Yeah.
know. Who knows what the
You
connection
know,
is between his legal practice and his politics, which is politics. He's been in 3 parties and he's pretending that he's still a member of all of them and all that stuff. But he was talking about making a ridiculous distinction between a gift, a gratuity, and a bribe. I mean, basically, they're all bribes. And so it doesn't
but
really make any difference.
but also what did it for me is that these Smeg toasters are hellishly expensive. You can go to a local supermarket and get a toaster for $100, and these things are like 4,500 rand. And that just added another layer to this cartoon for me. If Juju's hand had come out with a Rolex watch on, I would have gone, you see, that's what he bought with the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't do this from life. I did it from images that I downloaded because for exactly that reason.
This one I liked because
11th Rise of Zumbi.
the
Yeah.
11th. Will we ever forget that? But what I did forget, and it took me your book to remind me that we'd had an election this year. I'd forgotten all about it. And I think this is what happens, is that it's that exactly. We just don't realize that there was an election. Stuff happened. We've forgotten. We've moved on because now we're worried about America, and we shouldn't be.
The thing about, I mean, yes, there's that. But the thing
Jonathan,
for me,
please hold it there.
yes,
The doorbell's ringing and nobody's answering. So I've paused it. We'll pick it up
okay,
back here. Okay.
right. He's paused because his doorbell was ringing. Coming back. He paused.
Okay. I'm back. So let's just pick up. I'm just trying to think where.
I can start directly in
Okay.
from exactly where I was going to. Yeah.
All righty. So
Yeah. So there is,
hang on
sorry.
1 second. Let us. Then they buggered off. They came to drop a card, and now they just buggered off. Well, if you can sort it out. All right. So here we go. In 3. Okay. You were saying.
So there is that, yes, of course, the election. I mean, there you see the election poster, but and he got the court approval
Right.
to be the leader of this party, so that's the 11th rise of Zumbi. It's like, I mean, of course, he famously doesn't say numbers very well, so that is people laugh at the 11th. But here's the thing for me. The fact that it's many, many times the rise of Zumbi is the first time that I drew him as a Zumbi and his followers as Zumbis was 2005.
Wow.
So that's what here we have like a 20-year period during which he's risen, he's fallen, he's risen, he's fallen to points where you think he's gone, but he's never gone, and he always comes back. And then the sort of the kicker in this one is that as he goes along on his sort of zombie walk at the bottom with all the zombies, the MK zombies following, there's another zombie in the bottom right, and that is Cyril Ramaphosa with the JZ remission. The only reason that he was able to get that court approval was because of Cyril's idiocy in granting him a fake remission, a political remission that was dressed up to be a sort of legal one. Remember, 9,500 prisoners were released at one go by Cyril Ramaphosa in order to make it look as if Jacob Zuma was just part of that remission. And if he hadn't given him that remission, we wouldn't have the MK party. We wouldn't have Zuma wielding a hell of a lot of power that he got out of the election. I mean, and quite a large number of votes, and he's bleeding, members from the EFF. It's all because of Cyril's fear of all sorts of, the factions within the ANC and even the factions outside of the ANC, like Jacob Zuma.
Now, the showerhead is still an issue because you just brought out a movie and they wanted to slap a 0 to 16 age limit on it.
It was reminiscent of the sort of old South Africa censor board. I mean, it really it was a young group of people. I mean, I sat and watched them and listened to them because we mounted an appeal, a successful appeal against this, and they were lackeys, they were flunkies, they really were bureaucrats of the worst order, trying to protect Jacob Zuma, even though he's been shown to be corrupt. And that luckily the tribunal was overall mostly much more sensible, and they ruled that it was not going to be a 16 age limit anymore. It was going to be 13. But wow, the hearing was really interesting to see these kind of attitudes still in this day and age. Amazing.
It amazes me that that's still around. I had this discussion just recently with somebody. They were talking, I think Australia is now looking at restricting access to internet for certain age groups. And you go, children of 6, as soon as they can work a smartphone, which is normally 3, they're able to access all sorts of information. And that horse has bolted. There's no way that you can stop youngsters of today having access to information as we growing up never had, because it wasn't available to us. It is now.
Well, certainly, with something like a movie,
Mhm.
I understand some of those kind of things, PG, parental guidance for young kids when there are issues, there are penises in the cartoon, and and in the movies, there's some swearing, there's some difficult
Mm.
issues. The idea of, let's say, the rape of justice cartoon, that would have to be sort of mediated by an adult for
Yeah.
very young children. But for 16, that's totally absurd. 13 is pushing it. I would say you could have gone younger than that,
Be that as
but
it may.
definitely that there's an understanding that if you have 13 PG, that could have been, if they brought that out at the beginning, we wouldn't have fought them. But there
Yeah.
was 16, language, sex, violence, this, that, and the other. For this implied, there's this metaphor about
Mm.
somebody who is corrupt. And so my point always is, why are they so worried about what, the sort of 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds will see on their screen compared to the corruption of the politicians? That's what they should be worried about.
I love this cartoon. I don't know if, do you know if he's actually seen it or not? Give
Iqbal
feedback from
sees
Iqbal.
everything that I do. In one of his most recent diatribes, he specifically went for me. He's somebody I used to know socially,
Mm.
and I used to see him around and about, and everything headed south as he was starting to buy independent. In about the year before he started to buy, he was buying independent group. I started to see some of the dodgy stuff around him. And then
Mm.
I had a stand-up fight with him one day. I landed up at a party shortly after he had bought Independent, and he said, "Oh, Jonathan, you haven't done a cartoon about me yet." I said, "Well, you haven't stepped out of line yet."
Mm.
And then we had a straight up fight.
Mm.
And then shortly after that, I drew him as the emperor's, with no clothes,
Yeah.
completely naked. I've used this line. Uh, I'm Iqbal, king of all I survey.
Yeah.
I've used that line a few times, and he hates it.
So long may it continue. I think what the people that you utilize in your cartoons, what they don't realize is the more they shout out at you about a certain thing, like I am king of all I survey, or the shower head, the more that's going to feature in your cartoons. It's never going to go away. It's a brand. The shower head has become a brand almost of
Yeah,
its own accord.
definitely. I mean, with Zuma, I mean that I know of Zuma, of course. I know he doesn't like me and he doesn't like my cartoons. And one time when I confronted him on radio
Mm.
after he sued me for the second time, and I
Yeah.
asked him for the second time, I had asked him at a press conference,
Mm.
why are you suing me? And why you profess to be a supporter of press freedom? Why are you suing me and other people for doing our jobs, both
Mm.
as reporters and as commentators? And he said, I saw your drawings. You are invading my dignity. And I thought that was brilliant. It was a great quote. I put it on the back of my next book. But yeah, there are somebody else who also goes for me, and I've had actually almost a cartoon jam with, is
Yeah.
Fikile Mbalula, because
Right.
he reacted so badly to one particular cartoon that he added a whole lot of things in that he thought I should have written in a blank space where I said there's no action. That I then immediately went and I did another cartoon about that, and we had a sort of standoff in cartoon, which is hilarious.
It's like the quote that you've used on the back of your new one by Mondle.
Yeah, that you are one sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was Mondley to me in when I was contemplating a particular cartoon of Jacob Zuma,
right.
and then we eventually used that cartoon. Yeah.
This also garnered some um, controversy when it came out. And I don't know, I think this is a party that has reached its sell-by date. But it continues to be in and around and there and about trying, you know. You've got to give them A for effort.
Well, the weird thing for me is that like this cartoon itself wasn't particularly controversial, but what they did with their advert was ridiculous, and it was
Yeah.
ridiculously controversial because they are not nearly as bad politically as many of the people that they criticize,
Mm.
but they are so tone deaf that they make themselves look completely ridiculous. And in this instance, when they thought it was a good idea they're so kind of in their own heads that
Yeah.
they thought it was a good idea to burn a flag in order to show how bad things are.
Yeah.
And of course, what they did was they burnt their own fingers, and that's the obvious cartoon
And then this
sorry
one
about the
also,
background noise. Okay.
this one got to me because of the fact that the 1 point, 1 point, and pointless. I remember that that word was often, that Afrikaans word that was utilized has been misconstrued so many times. And if you don't know what side is in Afrikaans, go and look it up because I'm not going to be the one who uses it here and then gets hauled over the coals for using an obscene word when it's not.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to do is to just speak a little Afrikaans and say that wit kant is what Bongi Mbonambi it's 99% sure that that's what he said, and of course Tom Curry was he misconstrued it, and then there were so many wonderful memes. So I did a few cartoons out of it. In fact, the cartoon that I eventually did with the Match 23 plus. Rassi Erasmus and Nina, but I mean, 25 caricatures in this thing. And it started from that because it started with the sort of language lessons from the Witkant, and
Yeah,
it's all Afrikaans. And then it came up with the word pronk, which is the word that's specifically genuinely used when a springbok
correct.
jumps for joy.
Yeah.
Only a springbok. It's Afrikaans and it's English. And so that kind of that was my angle into the next cartoon.
Jonathan, the book is available currently. I know that you're on tour in Johannesburg, or you recently were, going bookshop to bookshop, signing thousands of copies. I hope you've got a wrist guard to keep your, your wrists supple and ready for the next book. Is it available as an ebook, or is it only available in bookstores?
No, it's not available as an ebook. We have tried those years ago, and it's at the moment it felt like it just works much better to do the annuals. I think there are perhaps some ebooks available of earlier
Mm.
annuals that I've done, but only a few. Yeah.
Published by Jacana and available now for Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, bar mitzvah presents, divorce presents, anything you like. If you want to have a good laugh, people, this is the one for you. It really and truly is, and it will also make you remember what actually happened in 2024. And Jonathan, what I do like is, and I'm going to hide my face on this, is this particular cartoon, which I think says a heck of a lot about this man and the fact that even though you've taken the government apart, you've ended it on a really nice note.
Yes, thank you. And you know that I also even have a cartoon in the annual about Pravin a few months earlier when I was still taking issue with him about what he was doing with the state-owned enterprises. But when he died unexpectedly, suddenly, I didn't want to even look at anything I disagreed with him with because he's such a hero to me and to so many people. And he really did help save us from some of the worst excesses that his
Yeah.
own party and his own government were part of. So I really wanted it to be a real tribute to the man.
Wonderful. Jonathan, well known to South Africans as Zapiro, this book, Have I Got News for You, published by Jacana, is now available at all good bookstores. It's even available at bad bookstores. In fact, it's available at any bookstore. Just walk in, and if they don't have it, like Arlo Guthrie in Alice's restaurant, just sit down and make sure that they get you a copy. Stay there until they do. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. It's a lot of fun. I wish you all the best with this one. What's planned for the early part? Is there anything planned for the early part of next year, or is it just sticking with the current Daily Maverick cartoons where people can see your work regularly?
I'm now. I feel like I'm a sort of a kind of a merch master. There's
Are there
the
t-shirts?
annuals out, but there are also T-shirts that Pick and Pay have put out, which have got inspirational rugby, my rugby cartoons and other sport cartoons, Madiba dancing, and so there's been that. There's been the movie. There's going to be another screening of the. It's still this year.
Mhm.
Another screening in Cape Town and possibly in Joburg of the shower head. And there are, yes, there are lots of things. I'm hoping that the shower head may go on onto a festival somewhere
I
else in
think
another country.
I
So there's a lot happening.
I think one of the major bathroom supply companies should hop on this bandwagon and bring out a very specific range of shower heads.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. We also have like various costume ideas for sort of Halloween and things. Yeah.
Jonathan, always great to chat to you. Thanks so very much for taking time out of a very busy schedule to join me off the shelf.
Thanks, David. Great.
My name is David Batsoff, and he's Zapiro. And join me for more next time on Off the Shelf.